She literally said it out loud. At a planning board Zoom meeting. On the record. While asking permission to build what can only be described as a private celebrity kingdom in upstate New York, Blake Lively looked into the camera and explained exactly why she and Ryan Reynolds had chosen this particular location. Our neighbors will never see us. Not, we love the community. Not, we want to raise our children in a peaceful environment. Not, we are grateful to be part of this town. Our neighbors will never see us. Only Blake Lively could say something that sounds borderline villainous and somehow package it like it's inspirational. Most people move somewhere and say we love the community. Blake was basically saying we chose this place because human beings cannot approach us. All about lawyer. And now, 8 years after that planning board meeting, the dream compound that was supposed to be their perfect untouchable sanctuary has become something very different. Over $2.1 million in unpaid contractor debt hanging over it. 5 separate contractors filed mechanics liens against Blake and Ryan's property. 5 separate companies. All about lawyer. Welcome to the Marquee Report. The neighbors may never see them. But the contractors certainly can. Let's get into every detail. Before we get to the debt, let's talk about what Blake and Ryan were actually trying to build, because the scale of this project is important context for everything that follows. This is not just some regular celebrity mansion. Blake and Ryan decided they needed the Avengers compound of luxury homes. Reports say the property includes a massive main residence, a giant pool house, a separate gym structure, geothermal heating and cooling, custom copper roofing, steel framing, drainage systems, septic infrastructure, excavation work, insanely high-end interiors. Basically every expensive thing a rich couple can possibly shove into one property. All about lawyer. Geothermal heating. Custom copper roofing. A separate gym building. A pool house big enough to be its own residence. And surrounding parcels of land purchased specifically to create that buffer, that beautiful empty space, ensuring the neighbors would indeed never see them. Blake had been so publicly excited about this property. She told the planning board years ago how desperate she was to get shovels in the ground and finally live there with Ryan and the kids. She described it like this magical sanctuary where nobody could bother them. All about lawyer. The vision was clear. The intention was clear. The brand alignment was perfect: environmentally conscious luxury, private family retreat, tasteful excess wrapped in pastoral New England aesthetics. And then the bills apparently stopped being paid. Let's be specific about what mechanics liens actually mean, because this is not a paperwork dispute or an accounting oversight. Contractors do not usually jump straight to filing mechanics liens unless something is seriously broken down behind the scenes. That's a legal move. It means people are fed up. A lien is basically a public declaration saying you owe us money and we're making it official. It attaches to the property itself. All about lawyer. 1 contractor complaining is a dispute. 2 contractors raises an eyebrow. 5 contractors filing separate legal claims against the same property, that is a pattern. And patterns tell stories. The biggest lien came from a company called Flower Construction. The lien from Flower Construction alone is over $1.3 million just from them. That company reportedly handled framing, HVAC, plumbing, electrical work, drywall, masonry, waterproofing, painting, millwork, basically everything. That's huge work. Serious work. All about lawyer. Flower Construction. The largest single creditor in this entire situation is a company called Flower Construction. The same Blake Lively whose entire public aesthetic is built around garden parties and floral arrangements and pastoral luxury, allegedly owes over $1 million to a company literally called Flower Construction. That is almost too perfect. It sounds like something written into a Netflix satire about celebrities. All about lawyer. And the total across all 5 contractors? Over $2.1 million. In unresolved claims. Still attached to the property. Still publicly on the record. No lien releases or satisfactions have reportedly been filed yet. Meaning, according to the records reviewed, these issues were still unresolved. If the claims had already been settled quietly, at least Blake and Ryan's team could spin this as temporary paperwork drama. But unresolved liens hanging publicly over your giant celebrity estate, that is a terrible look. All about lawyer. Here is where the contractor story becomes a reputation story, because the two things are completely connected in the current moment. People are struggling financially everywhere right now. So reading about two ultra-rich celebrities allegedly owing contractors over $2 million while building a luxury fortress where neighbors will never see us just hits differently. The optics are horrible, especially because contractors are regular working people. The internet will forgive celebrities for being rich. What people hate is when celebrities appear disrespectful toward workers. That's why this story blew up so fast. All about lawyer. This is the specific calculation that makes this story so damaging. It is not about the money itself. Ryan Reynolds has made extraordinary amounts from aviation gin, Mint Mobile, Deadpool. His financial position is not in question. Blake's earning power at her peak was equally significant. They're rich. But wealthy celebrities not paying contractors isn't exactly unheard of either. Sometimes it becomes a power thing. Sometimes celebrities assume companies will tolerate delays because of the prestige of working for them. Sometimes projects become so massive and chaotic that payments get tangled in disputes. And sometimes people with enormous wealth are surprisingly difficult about money. All about lawyer. That last sentence is the one that will follow this story. Not, they could not afford to pay. But, they apparently chose not to. And the people waiting for that money are not hedge fund managers or studio executives. They are contractors. Construction workers. People who did physical labor on this compound and are still waiting for payment. Let's talk about what this story does specifically to Ryan Reynolds, because his brand is built on something very particular that this situation directly threatens. Ryan's whole brand depends on likability. That lovable sarcastic guy image only works if people fundamentally think you're decent underneath the jokes. Stories involving workers allegedly not getting paid threaten that image fast. All about lawyer. The entire Ryan Reynolds persona is constructed around being the self-aware celebrity who does not take himself too seriously. The guy who jokes about his own movies. Who pranks his wife publicly. Who named his gin company after his daughter. Who built Mint Mobile into a billion-dollar acquisition while appearing completely uninterested in being impressive. That persona requires the audience to believe in the basic decency underneath the comedy. It requires them to think, yeah, he's rich and famous, but he seems like a real person who would actually be fun to hang out with. There's only so much Deadpool humor you can throw at a $2.1 million lien situation before people start eyeing you. All about lawyer. And the timing makes it worse. This story is landing in the exact same news cycle where Ryan Reynolds has been quietly doing reputation repair rounds following the Baldoni lawsuit fallout. The nostalgic reposts. The reconnections with former coworkers. The careful image management that everybody has noticed and nobody has bought. Adding contractor debt to that picture does not help. Here is the bigger picture, because this compound story is not just about one property dispute. It is the latest piece in a much larger mosaic that is forming around Blake Lively's public image. For years she was positioned as this aspirational lifestyle woman. Fashion icon baking cupcakes, gardening effortlessly chic mom of four. But stories like this chip away at that branding. Suddenly people start remembering old interviews where she sounded a little smug, old moments where she came off dismissive or overly curated. All about lawyer. Public perception changes fast and social media absolutely feeds off that shift. Once the internet senses even a tiny crack in a celebrity's image, everybody piles on with old clips, old controversies, old rumors. The mood changes overnight. 1 minute Blake and Ryan are couple goals. The next minute people are asking if there's secretly nightmares behind the scenes. All about lawyer. The compound was supposed to be the physical embodiment of the Blake and Ryan brand. Tasteful. Private. Environmentally conscious. Family-centered. The kind of home that signals, we have everything but we are not obnoxious about it. Instead, the house itself has become a source of scrutiny. The very thing designed to shield them is now dragging them into headlines. That always happens with celebrity excess. Eventually, they build these giant fantasy worlds trying to create control. But the bigger the fantasy becomes, the more dramatic the fallout looks when reality creeps in. All about lawyer. Here is where everything stands right now. Over $2 million in unresolved mechanics liens. 5 contractors. One company owed more than $1 million on its own. Construction that reportedly slowed dramatically in late 2025 before grinding to a halt in early 2026. No lien releases filed. Every future Blake and Ryan story is probably going to carry this weird undertone for a while. That's how celebrity culture works. Once a narrative enters the bloodstream, it lingers. People start connecting unrelated stories together. They start looking harder, listening differently. All about lawyer. And for Blake and Ryan, this giant upstate dream compound that was supposed to symbolize peace, privacy, and luxury has suddenly become something very different. A massive unfinished symbol of celebrity excess, public backlash, and a question Hollywood couples never want attached to their names. What's really happening behind closed doors? All about lawyer. The neighbors may never see them. But right now the entire internet is watching. This has been the Marquee Report. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss what comes next. See you on the next one.